Hello there. It is the evening of Friday, November 17th, and I have had a wonderful day on the mountain, enjoying the opening day of the snowboarding season. I have right here behind me my brand new Cappy de Horoscope 155, which I purchased in the off season and got to test out today, and it was awesome. And then I went home and took a nice soak in a hot bath, and am currently relaxing with a little ruination. However, I digress. The point of this video is to review a PS2 game, another JRPG I finished a couple days ago, and that game is Persona 3. Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3. And I spent a long time playing this game, and it's been a long time coming, getting to a point where I could call it completed, beaten. It is now beaten, and thought I would offer a little review. So with no further ado, let's get into it. I'll start with story and characters of Persona 3. And I have to say, the story and characters are a major strength of this game. Like other Shin Megami Tensei games, it dabbles in the occult. You see a lot of religious themes pop up here and there. And it's a pretty wild ride, and it has a few unexpected turns, and it's overall a pretty interesting story. To give just a basic synopsis, you're a high schooler. This game really takes place in just the life of a high schooler in Japan, and you have your little group of peers you can interact with a lot of social elements. Social links, of course, are a famous thing that came from this game. And you have this sort of alternate life, that takes place during the night, where you are part of this special team that explores this place called Tartarus. And it's essentially a gigantic tower that you explore, and there are basically these monsters all over the place called shadows, and the whole point of the game is to basically scale this tower and figure out why these shadows are there and just why it exists. You're kind of just unraveling the mystery of this phenomenon called the Dark Hour, which happens every night at midnight, that you can go to this place called Tartarus and fight these shadows. So that's what the story's about. It's pretty good. Moving on to characters, there's a gigantic cast of characters in this game, both playable and non-playable, and they're some of the best characters I've encountered in RPG, I would have to say. The playable characters have some of the best character development you will ever encounter in a game, and a lot of that character development is driven by your actions, the choices you make to interact with certain characters and expand their backgrounds, your knowledge of their backgrounds, by getting to know them better. And some of the most interesting characters are actually NPCs. There are a lot of NPCs in this game who have, they're from all walks of life, totally diverse, unique backgrounds, some really zany characters who are kind of unlike anything you'll see in too many other games, with a host of flaws that are rarely touched on in other games. Part of the reason this gets a mature rating, I think, is because there is so much there's so much baggage that comes with a lot of the characters in this game, and some of it's admittedly mature in content. But yeah, the characters are all fantastic. You know, some of them are sort of high school, teenager, anime cliches, stock type characters, but there are an equal number of characters that transcend stereotypes and are super interesting and unique and just really fun to learn about. So the characters are a huge strength of this game. Your player character is, you know, he's kind of the silent protagonist type, but you control kind of what kinds of responses he gives to other characters, and you have definitely have some control over if you just respond with ellipses or say more outrageous things. And there are a lot of entertaining, amusing character interactions throughout the game, and that's one of the big things that motivated me to keep playing. Probably the most enjoyable thing I got out of this game was just watching all the scenes unfold with different characters, whether it was including my character or not, whether I was taking part in the scene or not. It was just a lot of great drama. A lot of great drama, I would say. So now I will move into gameplay. And gameplay boils down to a pretty simple formula in this game when it comes down to it. Basically, you've got two aspects to the gameplay. One, you have the social aspect, which takes place in your high school life, and it very much is what you could call a high school simulator. You're going to school and you use up blocks of time. Typically you have a couple of choices. You know, you'll have like a choice for what you do after school and a choice for what you do in the evening, and you have a limited number of options in terms of places you can go in town after school and, you know, do the kinds of things a high schooler might try to do after school for kicks, whether it's go eat at some restaurant or go do karaoke in the evening. You definitely get the Japanese culture coming through pretty strong in this game and get some exposure to that, and that's pretty neat. It's pretty neat seeing things we don't necessarily get exposed to here in America that are part of the Japanese lifestyle, and there's definitely a lot of that. And a cool little bonus about all that stuff is there's a deep system of being rewarded in terms of a few different categories that affect the overall status of your character. So like different activities you can do can improve certain parts of your character, and some of these things are things that will come in handy when you're trying to socialize with other characters, like your charm or your academic level. You can study. That'll improve your academics. I can say that firsthand as someone who's studied a lot in my college life. Also, you have battle bonuses, and that bridges me to the next part of the gameplay, which is the battle in Tartarus. And I have some of my biggest praises and also biggest complaints for this aspect, this component of the game, because what you'll find about the dungeon environments in this game you explore and combat is that it's very formulaic and it's pretty repetitive. And probably my worst gripe with the game is that the dungeon environments you explore are of the nature where you go floor after floor through this place, night after night, and the floors are just randomized systems of hallways, but you're essentially seeing the same hallways floor to floor, and there's very little variation and very little change in the scenery in the main dungeon, which is essentially the only dungeon in the game. And it did get a little stale and a little old, I have to say, exploring it night in and night out. But on to the better parts of battle, bringing out kind of another story element here. There are things in this game called personas, which are almost exactly the same as demons in other Shin Megami Tensei games. I played Devil Survivor on DS before this, and that had demons in it, but you'll find between the two games that the designs of many of the demons and many of the persona in this game, personas, are identical. So like, they're the same kinds of monster designs, and essentially they serve the same function. You can acquire these things, these personas, and they can be used, they can be summoned in battle to perform a huge variety of special abilities, and the ability names are essentially mostly identical between this and Devil Survivor. Lots of the core abilities, and you can also fuse personas the same way you can fuse demons in Devil Survivor. And a huge thing that kept me playing through the dungeons, and a huge thing that inspired me to grind a lot in these dungeons, was just the prospect of being able to fuse higher level, more awesome personas. Because there are a lot of personas in this game. I only unlocked about 40% of them myself, but there are a lot of personas with different attributes that are really awesome. They're just cool to look at. They're just cool. I love expressing myself by choosing my favorite demons or personas or Pokemon if I'm playing Pokemon, and just having that be an expression of my individuality. And that's one of the things I love most about games like this, where you have the monster sort of collecting mechanic. So, yeah, the personas are an excellent feature of this game. Definitely a big draw as a hardcore RPG player like I am. What next? I guess I'll get straight into the visuals. Yeah, the visuals of Persona 3, they're nothing overly flashy. I mean, this is a PS2 game, and it looks pretty decent for a PS2 game, I think. There are some anime cutscenes. This is definitely a very anime-styled game in the character design, which I love, being an anime fan and a JRPG fan. And one thing I have to say that sticks out, that is distinctive about this game's style, is it has this sort of comic book presentation to a lot of the scenes and just the whole game in general, really. Whether you're in battle in Tartarus or in a scene between characters and they're talking and it, you know, reacting to one another's words and stuff. All the time you'll get these little these little windows come up on the screen when something dramatic happens with a character's, like, you know, surprised face, like right here, and it's exactly like what you see in a manga or comic book. And also in battle you see like these biff bam pow sort of words pop up as you're beating down your opponents, so that's fun, and it's really just a cool presentation. It's distinctive, it stands out. Not a lot of games have anything similar. I enjoyed the game's colorful, vibrant sort of presentation in that way. Not a lot of huge environmental variation, not a lot of environments to look at. I mean, you're pretty limited in this game, honestly. And it's sort of amazing it makes it work with how limited the environments are, because you can't explore too many areas. There's just a handful of places in the little town or city you are living in, and then Tartarus, which is kind of like a just big repetitive maze, but it's the things that you can do in the limited environments you're provided that make the game worth playing and keep things interesting and fresh as you progress. And the visuals you see are good. Moving on to audio, the audio department. There is some voice acting in this game. Not 100% voice acted, but all the major scenes, like cutscenes between characters, are voiced. And the voice acting is superb, definitely superb voice acting. They brought in English voice actors to do this, and every character, I would say, has a voice that fits them, a voice that's memorable and expressive, and yeah, the characters were just great to listen to, with maybe like one or two exceptions, but overall fantastic voice work. Really well done. The characters have excellent chemistry. I really enjoyed the voice work component of the audio. Music was not exceptionally good, but definitely solid for sure. A lot of the music has this kind of jazzy, laid-back sort of feel, sort of lounge music, and other tracks elicit this sort of, I don't know, this wistful, kind of carefree high school life sort of vibe, and when you're within Tartarus, you can actually have a few different options of tracks you can change the dungeon music to, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. And yeah, the kind of instrumentation and stuff you'll find is a lot of piano, for sure. A lot of piano and sort of laid-back electronic music a little bit. It's a neat soundtrack. Nothing super mind-blowing, but it's a cool soundtrack. I like it. So, I think that pretty much sums up about everything I have to say about Persona 3. I'll make a note here on the length of this game. I have to make a note on the length of this game. On the back here, it says that this game runs at like 70 plus hours to complete. And guess how long it took me? It took me 140 hours. 140 hours, start to finish, for me to play through Persona 3. Now, did I need to make it 140 hours? Did I need to? No, I did not. I did not need to spend 140 hours playing Persona 3. But I was driven to by a few different things, a few different factors. One is that I'm just a very thorough gamer. I like to explore a lot as I go through a game, and as time progresses, I like to revisit places, try to find and discover things that are different at different times. So that's just my OCD tendency that contributed to that length. And also there's just the excessive amount of time I spent grinding. And grinding is something that I am, well, I've become predisposed to do. And all the RPG playing I've done, it's just become kind of a habit. And I like to be over-prepared for boss fights so that I don't run into just run into a wall that stops my progression and holds me up in the middle of playing because I can't beat a boss. And the difficulty is decent in this game, so definitely behooves you to grind. You would definitely want to grind to some extent. I probably could have grinded less and shaved, I don't know, 20-30 hours off of my playtime maybe if I grinded less, but if I had done that, I wouldn't have gotten access to a lot of the awesome personas, and that was the big thing that kept me grinding for many hours. I'd often put some music on of my own choice while I did it, but I would grind and put so many hours into this game to unlock all those personas, because the personas are cool. The personas are really cool, and if you're anything like me, you'll want to discover a lot of different personas and try out using a whole bunch, because that's a big fun thing in this one. So, I don't have too much else to say about Persona 3. I guess I'll finish things off with one last comment on the overall theme of this game, or one of the overall themes that is really prevalent in this game, and was also prevalent, I might add, in Devil Survivor, and something I really like to see in fiction, because it's something I think about all the time. Every week, I would say I'm thinking about this. It's driven me to do what I'm doing in life right now. And quite simply, it's the theme of life and death, and the ephemerality of life is something that this game deals with to a great extent. And being someone who thinks about this so much on my own, it was just really enjoyable for me to see how different characters feel about life and death, whether they think about it, what they think about it, if it bothers them, if it doesn't bother them, if they had never even considered it, and how they cope with, the limited time people have to live. And some of the reactions I found baffling, and other characters I related to and just thought, yes, thank you for thinking that way, I agree. That it was always fun regardless, just seeing what different characters thought. It's always cool when there's something you really care about that you see brought up in a game and discussed and given attention. And yeah, this is a deep game. It's a deep game. It gives you a deep experience. It makes you think. It's thought-provoking. And there are a lot of unique characters who bring a lot of diversity into the mix. So, I guess if I put 140 hours into it, it's gotta be pretty good, right? And with that, I will say peace out, and go play some games.